You know that strange white salty crust you sometimes see on the ground or maybe on a brick wall? It's pretty common, but have you ever stopped to wonder what it actually is? Well, we're about to dive into that mystery, and trust me, the story it tells about the world right under our feet is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I'm talking about this stuff. You've probably seen it, right? Maybe you're walking through a dry area and you notice this powdery white layer just sitting on top of the soil. And you've probably thought, huh, what on earth is that? Well, today, you're going to find out.
So, at its heart, the explanation is actually really simple. You can break it down into 4 easy steps. First, water from under the ground rises up. Second, it brings all these dissolved salts along for the ride. Third, once it hits the surface, that water evaporates into the air. And finally, all those salts it was carrying, they get left behind. That's it. That's the whole process in a nutshell.
Now, even though the process is pretty straightforward, this phenomenon has a pretty fancy scientific name: alkaline efflorescence. It sounds a little intimidating, I know, but it actually describes what's happening perfectly. You've got alkaline salts that are efflorescing, which is just a cool way of saying they're blooming on a surface.
But how, exactly, do those salts make that trip from deep inside the soil all the way up to the surface? It's like this secret, unseen journey that's happening right under our feet. So let's pull back the curtain and see how it's formed.
All right, let's break down the science. It all starts with these alkaline salts just hanging out in the soil or rock. Then, something amazing happens. Groundwater starts moving upwards, kind of defying gravity by seeping through all the tiny little gaps in the soil. This is called capillary action. If you want to picture it, just think about how a paper towel soaks up a spill. It's the exact same idea. Once that water finally gets to the surface, the sun and the air make it evaporate, and it leaves behind all its salty baggage, which is what forms that white crust we see. So what exactly are these salts? After the water has vanished, who are the salty culprits left behind at the scene? Let's take a look at the actual chemical ingredients that make up this white crust. Okay, so the main players are usually sodium carbonate and sodium bicarbonate, which you might know better as washing soda and baking soda. You also get some sodium sulfate in the mix, and sometimes, depending on the area, salts of calcium and magnesium might join the party too. These are the chemicals that create that familiar white powdery stuff. Now, this whole thing doesn't just happen anywhere. Oh no, it needs a very specific recipe of conditions to show up. So, let's go on a hunt for its favorite hideouts. Where does this stuff typically appear? You basically need a perfect storm of 3 conditions. First, you need a dry or arid region where it doesn't rain much. That makes sense, right? If it rained all the time, the salts would just get washed away. Second, you need poor drainage, so the water tends to sit around underground instead of flowing away. And third, you need lots of evaporation, so when the water does make it to the surface, it disappears fast and leaves the salts behind.
And this really brings it home. In India, these conditions are super common in places like Rajasthan, Haryana, Western Uttar Pradesh, and some parts of Punjab. You can even spot it on the Deccan Plateau. So if you live in or have traveled through these areas, you've almost certainly seen this in action. So this leads us to the big question. When we see this white crust, should we be worried? Is it just a harmless little sign from nature, or is it pointing to a much bigger problem for the land? Well, the answer is, it's kind of both. You see, this stuff has 2 very different faces. If you're a farmer, it is absolutely bad news. It makes the soil way too alkaline, which is terrible for crops. It messes up the soil structure and can even form a hard crust on top. But if you flip the coin and you're a geographer or a scientist, it's an incredibly useful clue. It's like a giant flashing sign from the earth that says, hey, the drainage here is bad, or the water table is really high. It tells you a lot about the climate. So yeah, it's a problem and a valuable indicator, all at the same time.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, literally. So let's boil it all down. Let's lock in the key takeaways so this all sticks. Whether you're just curious or maybe even studying for an exam, this is the part you really want to remember. So here it is, the official textbook definition. It neatly wraps up everything we've talked about. You've got your surface accumulations of alkaline salts. They're formed when saline groundwater rises up by capillary action and then it evaporates. It's the complete scientific story in one perfect sentence.
And hey, if you need that super short version, the one you can pull out for a quick answer in an exam, here you go. What are alkaline efflorescences? Simple. They are white salt crusts from evaporated alkaline groundwater in dry regions. Short, sweet, and gets the job done. And that brings us to the end. From now on, when you see that white powder on the ground, it's not just a random thing anymore, is it? It's a message. It's a story. So the next time you see it, take a second and ask yourself,
What is this land trying to tell me about the water hidden below and the climate all around me?